Welcome back to another episode of the Peak Signing Agents podcast, where I'm going to help you become the best notary and signing agent you can be. I'm your host, DVO, Derek Van Otten. Let's get into another episode. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for being a part of my podcast and YouTube channel. If you didn't know, you can watch on YouTube and Spotify, or you can listen on any podcast platform that you like. I'm there. You can also find me on social media at Peak Signing, as in mountain peaks, because I live in the beautiful state of Utah. We have lots of beautiful mountains, and peak means you're at the top. That's why I want to help you become a peak signing agent. I want you to be the best peak notary you can be. Again, thank you. I'm humbled, and let's get into another episode. We're going to get into some Notary 101 on this one. Okay? I'm going to talk about jurats and acknowledgements, because as signing agents, we're going to encounter that the most, jurats and acknowledgements. In fact, even just doing general notary work, we're going to run into these. These are the most common. Now, there are other types of notarial certificates that we can do, like credible witness. We can also do certificate of authenticity of a copy, certified copy. So a lot of different things. But in our everyday role, most of the time, majority of the time, we're dealing with jurats and acknowledgements. And I want you to know the difference between the two. I want you to know how you can differentiate the two as well. Why am I talking about this on this episode? Especially if you are a peak notary and signing agent and you've done this for a while and you understand the difference. That's okay. That's okay. I still might give you some tips here. You might learn something new here as well. So that's okay. But if you know, and if you're newer, this might definitely help. But let's talk about jurats and acknowledgements. What is the difference? I'm actually looking at my state's website. Okay. Now, I definitely believe you should be going to your state's website, know your laws, know the differences. But this is what my state website says. Jurat certifies that a voluntary signature was made in the notary's presence under an oath or affirmation. Acknowledgement certifies that a signer has admitted in the notary's presence to voluntarily signing a document. And signature witnessing certifies that a voluntary signature was made in the notary's presence. That's what it says. A little techie in my opinion. So let's give the layman's terms. Let's break it down a little bit more. What is the difference between an acknowledgement and a jurat? Well, what this form is saying, now I know I'm reading my states, but I can guarantee you in your state, it is the exact same thing. That's why I feel very confident reading you my states. But I feel very confident it's the same in every state. A jurat, as it says, it's a voluntary signature, right? So we have to make sure that they're not being forced to sign anything. It was made in the notary's presence. So that means it was, the signature was made in the notary's presence. It was signed in front of us. A jurat must be signed in front of the notary under an oath or affirmation. So either they declared an oath that you gave your state's oath, or they affirmed they understood what they are signing, that they affirmed that this was voluntary and they understand what it is that they're signing. Okay? Now, we don't need to ask, as notaries, we do not need to ask so much detail as in, what is it? What's it about? Who's it for? We don't need to ask that. Like, do you understand what you're signing today? What is that you're signing today? And we just kind of look at the page and make sure it kind of matches up. An acknowledgement certifies that a signer has admitted in the notary's presence. Okay, it doesn't say signed in the notary's presence. Now, a jurat said it was signed in the notary's presence. This says it is admitted in the notary's presence to voluntarily signing it. All right, and that we certify it was voluntary, and we certify that in our presence. So basically, the person has to be in front of us. So they can date. They could have signed and dated this yesterday in an acknowledgement. Under an acknowledgement, they could have signed and dated this yesterday. They're just saying, as an acknowledgement, that they understood what they signed yesterday, and that they did sign it. They're going to convey that to us in person. We're going to verify with their ID it was them, and then we can sign, notarize for today. We always sign and notarize for today as notaries. On an acknowledgement, they could have done this beforehand. In a jurat, it must have done before us. Now, that's general notary work. When it comes to loan signings, even though the law says an acknowledgement could have been done or signed yesterday, on the loan forms, they must be signed on a certain day. Okay? So let's just clarify that. Even though an acknowledgement could have been signed yesterday or a week ago, and we can notarize today that they understood what they signed, on a loan signing, it has to be done in front of, because the title company and the mortgage company want to make sure that it was done in front of a notary. Even though it could have been done outside and that would have been lawful, it would not have been accepted by the mortgage or title company if it wasn't done the same day in front of the notary. Does that make sense? All right. So there's law, what's acceptable by law, and then what the mortgage and title company would want. Okay. And we have to appease both of them. We have to make both of them happy. So we have to follow the law. That's always number one. And then follow instructions from our mortgage and title and escrow companies. And when it comes to loan signings, they want this done in front of the notary same day. Okay. Hope that makes sense. Now, we talked about that. What is the difference? How do you tell? Let's just say there's a split signing. And I have a future episode coming up on split signing. So this is good that we're covering it right now a little bit. Let's say we have a split signing and you're meeting with a spouse and the other spouse is meeting with another notary. Okay. And they met with the other notary, let's just say yesterday. So the husband met with a notary yesterday and you're meeting today with the other spouse. You got the documents that was signed by the husband. You have the documents now. And the first notary used all the notarial forms. You now have to attach a loose certificate. How do you know if it's an acknowledgement? How do you know if it's a jurat? That's what we're talking about. How do you know the difference? Well, an acknowledgement is going to have certain words, okay? You need to make sure there's notarial verbiage every time. You need to make sure there is notarial verbiage. I saw a recent post where someone was asking, hey, this says seal, but does that mean I just signed somewhere below? And it was on I don't know what form it was though. It just had the signer's name under a signature line. So that means on the signature line, the signers need to sign it. And at the end of the signature line, in parentheses, it says seal. So she was asking, well, do I need to add a loose certificate? What do I do here? And a lot of people chimed in and said, well, a seal doesn't always mean a notary stamp. A seal has many definitions, right? Sometimes it means our notary stamp. Sometimes it means someone's signature. So everyone chimed in. But I just said, hey, you got to make sure you understand notarial verbiage. Like, you don't just attach loose certificates. You don't just start stamping away. You need to understand notarial verbiage. So notarial verbiage is going to have a venue, meaning state and county, right? State of blank, county of blank. On this date, and it should have the date of when it was signed and notarized. It should have the venue. It should have the person's name. Before me was, and the person's name. The signer's name. If you don't see this type of notarial verbiage, there's not a place for you to stamp and sign. Now, let's just say there is, right? There is notarial verbiage. It doesn't match your state's notarial verbiage. You have to attach your state's loose certificate. How do you know the difference between an acknowledgement and a jurat? Are you including the right one? Or like in this example, it's a split signing. And the first notary, you're the second notary, the first notary has already used the notarial verbiage. You need to add a loose certificate. Which one? Is it a jurat or an acknowledgement? Now, if you're doing general notary work and someone has something for you to notarize, and you have to say, well, is this an acknowledgement or jurat? You cannot tell them what it is. Okay, you can't just tell them, oh, this is an acknowledgement, or oh, this is a jurat. You can't. Obviously, if there's notarial verbiage there, you would know. But if it's not there, they're just say, hey, I have this letter that I wrote. Can you notarize it? And it's just a random letter they wrote. Or hey, I have this form I have to fill out, and whoever I have to give this form to, they said I have to get it notarized. But there's no notarial verbiage. But they want it notarized. That's fine. General notary work, we can do that. We just have to ask them, well, is this an acknowledgement or a jurat? And they're going to say, I have no idea. Well, you can say, well, acknowledgement means you understand what you're signing, and a jurat means you certify that you're signing it today in front of me. And they're like, what? Here's the easy breakdown. Well, this is what I used to say when I used to do general notary work. I don't do general notary work anymore, but when I used to do general notary work, I would say this. Well, let me ask you this. I would say, is this an acknowledgement or a jurat? The difference is an acknowledgement means you understand what you are signing. And you could have signed this at any point. And if you signed it before I got here, then it's obviously an acknowledgement now. And then I say, and a jurat means it must be signed in front of me. Not that it can be signed in front of me, but a jurat means it must be signed in front of me. And you certify that you did that. And they give you the answer. You can never give them the answer. You kind of give them the definitions and let them choose. Now, when it comes to loan signings, it will 100% be in the packet. In the mortgage, the documents will be there for you to either have an acknowledgement or have a jurat. It will 100% be there. Even though an acknowledgement could have been signed yesterday, when it comes to loan signings, it must be signed in front of you the same time, the same day. Okay? So how do you tell the difference? An acknowledgement will say this type of wording in the notarial verbiage, in the paragraph. Again, it must have a few things, 3 things. The venue, state and county, the date, today's date, and the signer's name, who was in front of you. A lot of times, one of these 3 things are not there. You need to include it. In my state, I can write it in. A lot of times with jurats, it will have the venue, state and county. It will have the date. And then that's it. I handwrite, because it's allowed in my state. Make sure you understand your state's laws. It is allowed in my state. I write the person's name by John Doe and Jane Doe. If you write in the names, you must keep them separate. You cannot put John and Jane Doe, John Doe and Jane Doe. Does that make sense? You have to include both names first and last. You cannot just say John and Jane Doe, because then you're assuming they know who is in front of you and that they share the last name. You cannot just assume they know. You have to include both the names. And the names, how it was throughout the whole package. If there's a middle name, you have to make sure you write that in too. However it was on the signature line, however they're signing it as, you need to write their name in. Okay? So how do you tell the difference? An acknowledgement will say, affirmed, before me, acknowledged. These are some of the words that these words are what's going to be there. That's going to indicate to you, oh, this is an acknowledgement. It says acknowledged before me. Okay. Signed in front of me. So these are some verbiage you're going to see. Jurats are going to say things like subscribed, sworn. Okay. Actually, this is where it says signed in front of me. What's another one? Acknowledged, sworn, under oath. That's another one. Okay. These are verbiages for jurats. Subscribed, sworn, under oath, in my presence. These are going to be some of the words. An acknowledgement is going to be acknowledged, before me, affirmed. Right? These are words that are for acknowledgements. So those are the differences. Going back, just a recap. Acknowledgements can be signed at any time for general notary work, but you acknowledge that they understand what they were signing, and you notarize for today. No matter when they signed it, you notarize it for today. Now, if you see the verbiage and it's jurat verbiage, subscribed and sworn before me, and they've signed it, it's no good. Okay? Because that's jurat verbiage and they signed it. So that means it's no good. They have to get a new form. When I used to do general notary work, I would tell people, this is what I would say. I said, what is it that you are getting done? What is it that you're getting signed? I said, okay, what I want you to do is have everything filled out except your signature. Do not sign it until I get there. Because I don't know what it is. Don't sign until I get there, but fill it out, because I didn't want to arrive to an appointment and then they have to fill out all this paperwork. I did that once. I was like, okay, I'm going to make sure this doesn't happen again. And I'm going to give them information like, fill it out before I arrive. Have it all filled out before I arrive. Have your IDs ready before I arrive. When I get there, I'll verify your IDs. I'll look at the form. You tell me what it is, and then sign. I always made people sign in front of me. I always made them. Sometimes it was signed already before it got to me, I should say. And I would make sure it was an acknowledgement. But this is the difference, okay? Acknowledgement can be signed at any time, but they acknowledge in your presence that they understood and that they signed it, and you're verifying it's them with their ID. And then you notarize for today. A jurat means everything I just said, but it must be signed in front of you, and then you sign and notarize in front of their presence as well, that they understood what they were signing. That's general notary work. When it comes to loan signings, everything must be signed in front of the notary when it comes to loan signings. And what's the verbiage? An acknowledgement is going to say acknowledged, before me, affirmed. These are acknowledgements. Jurats are subscribed, sworn, in my presence, under oath. Right? Those are the verbiages you are looking for. That's the difference. If you have to add a loose certificate or a compliance certificate, don't just add certificates, okay? The notary verbiage should already be there. You're just either adding your compliant, or maybe it's a split signing, or maybe you messed up and you have to add a loose certificate, for whatever reason, or there's not enough room and you have to add a loose certificate as well. Make sure you understand which one is which. All right, I hope that helps. Keep being awesome. Keep being a peak notary and a peak signing agent that you are meant to be, because you deserve it. Your family deserves it. Your future deserves it. You are worth it. Believe me, you're worth it. I believe in you. Keep being awesome. I'll catch you next episode.